Canvas, 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 canvas. Pretty sure the only reason they had a liner on this boot anyhow is to cover up the canvas. That's the only reason why I can think of having a liner to this boot. Boot. It just rotted right to the very core. Hi, my name is Sam Schmidt. I'm a bootmaker here in southern Utah. And this is going to be my review of the Thursday Vanguard boot. I've had these boots for about 2.5 years now, and overall I've really liked them. But for the past year, they've kind of crapped out on me. So because of that, I want to take this boot completely apart. Starting with the toe cap, the VAMP, the quarters, the counter cover. Just everything about this boot's going to be taken apart. From there, we're going to see the quality of the skiving to the quality of the stitching, and see more on how this boot was constructed. Okay, let's get to it. Okay, let's get started with the sole first. This is the Thursday version of the VIBRAM DANITE sole. I liked it. It worked pretty well. The only thing I didn't like about it, though, is it was incredibly thin. You know, a lot of cobblers will say, oh, we need to trench down deeper into it, or, you know, to do a good trench, you have to go about halfway through the sole, so you get the most amount of wear from it. But this sole had a pour-on midsole, and they still had a low profile to everything. So because of that, if you went halfway through, you're pretty much going all the way through the sole at this point, and it wouldn't be a good trench for it. Okay, then off to the insole. Things I liked about the insole. Nothing. Things I didn't like about the insole. It's cardboard. The holdfast was just glued on there. And cardboard, I don't know if you know this, but it's paper. Once you glue something to paper, the top surface of it is just going to rip off to anything that you have glued on. It's not a firm foundation, so it doesn't really belong in boots. It doesn't connect well to anything. The back heel's fine because all the leather is wrapping over it. Everything is nailed down and pressed. But to the things that aren't, that are just sewn on, oh no, nothing holds. All right, the welt. I have no problems with this welt whatsoever. This is actually something very similar to what I would use. So yeah, it's a pretty good welt. Okay, next off is the shank. This is a really beefy shank. I would only use a shank this thick, this ribbed, for maybe like cowboy boots with the taller heel, something that you want a lot of support for. With a lower heel that the Thursday was, I would expect maybe a thinner shank that could actually bend a little bit more to bend in what your foot wants to do. Now the shank is there to support your foot, not be so rigid that it just fights against it and causes a lot of discomfort. Okay, and next off is the nails. These nails are pretty rusted. There's no way against this. You can use stainless steel nails, or you can use brass. Brass is, gosh, for brass nails, they would be probably around $80 to $90 a pound. So I know why Thursday isn't using it. It's hard to get them too. Okay, now off to the sock liner. Sock liner I didn't really like. It didn't really handle moisture all that well. In the other boot, it actually ripped right at the joint while I was wearing them. And these pair, they ripped back at the heel. So I would want a thicker piece of leather, maybe a 2 to 3 ounce. That would be good. Okay, now off to the heel lifts and the top lift. The heel lifts I didn't have a single problem with. I thought they were really good. I really loved the tight grain of them. Into the top lift, it lasted about 2.5 years without a reheel. So that was pretty good. All right, the quarters. The quarters I overall liked. I really liked the full liner going completely around the hard counter. Very comfortable. I think that was thin pigskin as well. Like the shape, like the overall style. The only things I didn't like was this third line. Traditionally, that's a functional line of thread. It's supposed to go right on the edge of the vamp so it doesn't curl over and give you a discomfort. This eyelet stay was also decorative, and the top line was also decorative. Somebody looking at these will say, oh, 3 lines of thread, that's great. It's actually only 2. Although, with the eyelet stay not being there, I still liked it. The eyelet stay really only depends on if you have a bellows tongue or a connected tongue. On something that isn't connected, like a separated tongue like this design, I wouldn't be too cautious of having a decorative line for the eyelet stay. It looks nice. All right, the vamp. Okay, there's a couple parts I want to unpack here. First being skiving. The rule with skiving is that 80% of the strength of the leather is in the top 20% of the leather. Meaning you can take off 80% of the flesh side to thin it down, and you're still going to have a lot of strength to that leather. You would do this for cosmetic reasons. It would look a little bit nicer on the seams. It would fit better on the foot, and also it would have actually a stronger sew. They did a really good job on the toe cap side of things for skiving and the vamp for where it connects. But as for the toe, or as for the tongue, that's where they kind of skipped out on that. The next is sewing. So here you'll see something I call a keyhole. It's where the sew marks go straight up. Traditionally that's done to the side. So you would do a sew mark going up, go up 6, over 6, down 1, over 6, and then back into your third line, and then back up into your second to end. They want it to go straight up, so it's a little bit more cosmetically pleasing, but the strength isn't there. Fighting the quarters when they open, they're only going to have to fight against 2 lines of thread instead of 6. So I wish they would change that on their other boots. All right, the counter cover. So I talked about skiving earlier, and this didn't really have any skive to it. It was very thin. It was very thick. Again, it's backed with this canvas stuff because, gosh, anything that they would want in this boot, they backed with canvas, which, yeah, the whole point of canvas is to keep structure to the leather. You normally see it on taller boots. You don't see it on ankle boots whatsoever. You don't really see it in cowboy boots either. I'm talking about like the riding boots, a taller cowboy boot, maybe something higher than 12 inches because the standard is 12. But they would normally just use a thicker liner in the calf. The reason I would want to see better skiving is when you go to the lip, you want that sewn all the way down, as close to the edge as you can, just to keep anything from getting inside, because that'll actually protect the stitches as well if you go to the outside of the leather, not just like maybe 3-4 millimeters in from the leather for your sewing. I'll keep dirt out, which will protect the threads. In that canvas. Canvas. The toe cap. So earlier I talked about that third line being functional, and on this toe cap you actually see that. I really like that because that kind of solidifies everything that's underneath it, so there's no chance of that vamp actually rolling under. I really like that. Now, if they could have taken that to the rest of the boot, that would have been wonderful. All right, the tongue. So, talked about sewing right up to the edge earlier, and you don't see that. It's about probably around 8 to 10 millimeters behind the edge. And you don't really want that because there's, again, a chance of that leather rolling underneath, which would cause a lot of discomfort. But other than that, tongue's really good. Solid piece of leather. It's actually thick. If they didn't want it to crease like this, maybe you could have added backing to it along with the liner. That would have been really good. Sometimes when I'm doing an ankle boot, I'll do the tongue and the vamp in the same piece of leather, and I'll line the entire thing just to give more of that comfort. And it's better cosmetically because you have the thread that looks nice. Plus you don't have the crinkling up as much. Okay, hard counter and toe puff. Okay, both these things are extremely important to have on a boot, but let's go into the importance of a hard counter first. So the reason why you would want a good strong hard counter is actually your foot wants to expand every time you walk down on it. So because of that, traditionally it's made out of a hard piece of leather like shoulder or butt. That really forces the heel to stay in place, so there's not any overstretching in the boot that's going to ruin, the fit of the boot. Okay, I complain a lot about styrene when it's used in hard counters, but I absolutely love it when it's used in a toe puff. Super easy to work with. Recraftability is easy. And it just retains the shape super well. Yeah, this is about the only part of the boot that, in my opinion, should be styrene. The rest should be all leather. Okay, this is where I start to get really annoyed with this boot, with the liner. As you can see, this liner is completely rotted. And the canvas looks really nice. Again, the point of canvas in boots is to retain the shape of taller boots, so they have a little bit of a backing to it. Canvas isn't the best for it. Most people, or actually most cowboy boot makers, will just use a thicker liner that has some body to it, or some thicker outer leather, or they'll just do a decently medium-sized liner and a medium-sized outer, and that will retain the shape just fine. But no, you shouldn't have it in ankle boots at all. Alright, so I wasn't a big fan of these boots. I wasn't a fan of how they sewed the boots together, to where they skived, to the liner itself and the canvas. I wasn't a big fan of the man-made materials that they chose to use, like a leather, cardboard insole and a styrene counter. These are foundational parts of the boot that should be made out of something that's quality. Cardboard, there's no foundation to it. There's no sturdiness to it. It's just going to start breaking apart. And as you can see, it was just glued on. They didn't sew it all or anything. And it just peeled that top layer of cardboard right off. So overall, I would give these boots probably around a C- to a C. They advertised it as handmade, which really isn't the case at all. Handmade boots, you have a leather insole. You can do it in a stitch down construction to get away from the hand welting. Or you can just do your inseaming by hand out of a leather hold fast. That's my opinion though. Canvas, 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 canvas.